Okay, let's get this show on the road then. Welcome everyone. Welcome to, well, it's the third webinar of 2024 already from us here at Conservation Careers. Thank you for joining us this evening, morning, lunchtime, whatever it is for you. It's actually quite unusual for me because it's actually light outside still. The UK is still bright. It's been dark for what feels like months at this time. So it's nice. We've got birds calling. The sun is out. All is well in the world, and it's good to have you here. Now, today it's all about how you can become competitive for conservation jobs. Okay, so whether you're a student, whether you're a graduate or a job seeker, or maybe you're a career switcher, okay, looking to kind of bring your skills, talent, knowledge into the sector. Whoever you are most welcome, okay? What we're going to do over the next hour is we're going to walk you through a really simple, proven process that you can follow, okay, off the back of this webinar for how to create an action plan to secure your dream job, okay? So while we introduce ourselves, me and Christy here on the call, we'd love to hear from you in the comments. Okay, so if you can kind of find the comments or the chat button, I think it is, okay, and type in your name and location. We'd love to hear who you are and where you are. So I'm Nick, I'm in the UK. Okay, who are you and where are you? We'd love to hear from you. And as you're doing that, okay, as you're finding the chat buttons, letting us know, let me just briefly introduce ourselves. Okay, so I'm Nick, I'm the Director of Conservation Careers. I've been a professional conservationist now for 20-something years doing various roles and set Conservation Careers up over 10 years ago now to, well, we envisage a world where wildlife thrives and we're on a mission for conservationists to achieve career success. Okay, so we want to help people into the industry like yourselves. We want you to find happy, successful careers within conservation. And we're here to provide honest, effective, transparent, and useful advice that gets you hired quicker, okay? We're not here to glorify conservation as this perfect place that everyone should be working, but if this is where your passion lies, we're here to help you connect with it. Joining me is my partner in crime, our head of programs, Christy Foster, over in Rio. Hey, Christy.
Hello, hello. Great to be here. Yeah, I'm Christy. Many of you may know me already. We were just realizing I've been with CC for 5 years now, sort of supporting people in navigating their careers and having career success in conservation, like Nick said. And I'm based here in Rio right now, normally in Vancouver, Canada. And maybe I'll just add that, you know, we obviously support people who are wanting to work in conservation or switching in, but we've been there also. We've been there applying for jobs, struggling to get jobs. In my case, career switching into conservation early in my career. So we know it's tough. And that's one of the reasons we're doing this webinar, to try and simplify, clarify, just make the whole process easier and more fun. So we're excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you're in Rio, but you're going back to Canada soon. So this might be the last little webinar for a while when you're down there in the Southern Hemisphere. And it's probably worth saying, actually, you've been here 5 years in employment, but you started as a volunteer at Conservation Careers too, way back in the day. So yeah, we've been working together closely for years now, which is lovely. So why are we talking about becoming competitive for conservation jobs? Okay, so we know it can seem like conservation jobs can have a million requirements. We're going to give some examples of that actually in a little while, okay? You might also be worried that you'll have to spend ages, getting experience or training to become employable, okay, and to meet all those requirements that you see in job descriptions too. And we also know that this really is a kind of key challenge faced by many of you. We ran a poll asking what was your biggest barrier to becoming competitive, okay, and this was one of the biggest barriers of all, what we're talking about today, how you get the right skills, how you become employable, how you become competitive. So you spoke and we listened, okay, so this is all about, serving you as best as we can. So over the next hour, what we're going to do is run through a really simple 4-step process that you can use straight off the bat, okay, to becoming employable. It's going to save you lots of time and money, okay, and we're going to leave you some time at the end for questions as well, okay, so we'll run and leave at least 10 minutes, hopefully a little bit more, for you to ask questions. We'll answer as many as we can. For questions, you can ask questions as we go. I'd encourage you probably to leave as many as possible till the end, because you might find that we cover it during the session. We're going to use the Q&A button, okay, so not the chat button for that, okay, and I just encourage you to keep your questions really short, okay, so if you can keep it to like 1 sentence max, that makes it much easier for us at our end just to digest and find them. And feel free to upvote and downvote. The ones with the most votes we will answer first and work down from that, okay, when we get there. Okay. Christy, we've had a load of people say hello. Thank you, everyone. It's lovely to meet you and to see you all. We've got Marlene in the Netherlands. Sienna, hey, Sienna, we know you well. Good to see you. Do link in with Sienna. She's always here to kind of network. Well done. Julie in France, Maya in Vancouver, Canada. Oh, there you go. A fellow Canadian for you, Christy. That's nice. Yeah. Got Marika, Gordon, Duncan. We've got Spain, Belgium, Germany too. In Germany, welcome both. Guten Abend. We've got James, Sarah, Toby. I think I saw an email from you today, Toby. Good to see you. Cyril, we've got Suprithra in India, welcome to, and Scott as well. Great. Okay, it's great to see you all. Thank you for joining. And thanks for kind of being with us. Right, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to screen share mode. Okay, so bear with me while I do that. Hopefully that works okay. Christy, can you see that all right? Great.
Perfectly clear. Yeah.
Thumbs up. Amazing. Right, let's get into the meat and potatoes then of the session today. So we know that many of you might feel overwhelmed by employers, really long lists of requirements, okay? And you might be worried about having to spend ages in terms of time and also money in terms of to get to the right experience and to become competitive. But, what if there was just a simple process to becoming competitive for these conservation jobs, particularly in the kind of early career stages or the switching stages that many of us are at? Okay, so in this webinar, we're going to guide you through the 4-step process you can see in front of you. Okay, so step one, which we'll go into more detail, obviously, is about having a target job. Okay, we're going to teach you, why most people fail to become competitive for jobs and what you can do instead. Okay, really important having that target job. Step two, identifying gaps. Okay, you'll learn how to complete a gap analysis. What is a gap analysis? How does it work? Okay, and how can you use it to identify the right experience, skills, knowledge for your chosen job, for your target job. Okay. Number three, okay, over the hump, how are you going to fill those gaps? What is the best way to create like an action plan to become super employable for your role and to save you lots of time and money in the process? And then finally, for the switchers out there in the audience, we're going to talk about how you can use stepping stone roles as well to move you towards your target role. Okay, what are those transitional roles that will get you moving quicker, okay, and get you into the sector and get you moving on and up as quick as you need to. Okay, now throughout this process, we will be sharing resources and stuff into the Q&A so you can go deeper in certain aspects if you wish to, so do keep an eye in the chat. Okay, but let's get going. Okay, so let's start with step one. Step one is all about having a clear target, okay? The first step to becoming competitive is knowing what you're becoming competitive for, okay? Which sounds a bit silly, but it's very obvious. If you want, this is also, I guess, a key step to fulfillment and happiness in your career, okay? If you can find a role which suits you, what is unique about you, so in terms of your skills, your knowledges, what you love doing and what you're great at doing, okay, then you're going to have a good chance of standing out and also having the rocket fuel of enthusiasm within your career to kind of drive you forwards. In terms of navigating your career, it's a bit like going on a journey. Okay, so if you don't have a destination in mind at the beginning, it's really hard to actually make progress towards something. Okay, and you might also be feeling lost. So a lot of people we see in the early stages of career exploration just feel a bit lost and confused and without that focus and without that target. So having the target becomes really important. Let me talk about it from a couple of different perspectives, okay, in case that helps. Okay, so I often think about securing a conservation job, or securing your first conservation job as entering quite a competitive arena. Okay, as you're probably aware, conservation is a competitive area. You often see quite a lot of applications for entry-level positions, particularly popular positions. Okay, and it's a bit like going into a competitive arena, a bit like the Olympics, let's say, using that analogy. So if you went to the Olympics trying to secure, say, a medal, it's like a metaphor for securing a job, okay, there's two different approaches you can take to that, okay, two different strategies. One is you can say, I'm going to go for every event that's out there. There's 50 odd events at the Olympics. If I enter every one of the 50 events, it gives me 50 chances of securing that medal. Okay, and it's the same with jobs. There's loads of different jobs out there. If I just fire out my CV to lots of different jobs, that gives me loads of chances. It's all about volume. Now, the problem you can probably appreciate with that is that it's very hard to become competitive for an individual event. If you fire out applications to different jobs, if you enter every different event at the Olympics, you're going to be up against someone who's specialized earlier than you, that found their niche and doubled down and become great at it. If you jump into the cycling event, you're going to be up against a Chris Hoy with his massive legs and his huge lung capacity. Chose the right event for him, suited who he was, what he was skilled at, and what he loved at doing, then became really good at it. And the same with all the other athletes you can see here on screen. And it's obviously the same with jobs too. If you spread yourself too thin and you're too much of a generalist, what you'll often find is other people are more specialized for that specific job, and you'll really struggle to get through to the interview level. So having a focus becomes really important. Another way of thinking about it really is in terms of gardening. And I'm looking out at my garden right now, which doesn't look like that, I must say. Well, there's a phrase in gardening, and I'm not a gardener, which is right plant, right place. Okay, and it's the same in your career. You know, some plants like hot, sunny conditions, some like it dark and wet, some like acidic, some like alkali soils, and so on. Okay, and it's the same in your career. Okay, so we're all different. Some of us want to be outside, some of us want to be inside, some of us want to be working in teams or on our own, some want to be using our hands, some want to be using our heads, you know, and be more cerebral, and so on. Okay, so finding what is unique about you and reflecting and finding the right balance, the right career that's helped you to thrive, okay, is really important in the early stages and give you the greatest chance of success in terms of being employable, but also about being happy and impactful as well at the same time. Christy.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah. So hopefully it's super clear that, finding your niche within conservation and having a direction is really, really important, especially when you're getting started. And I think, sometimes we say that when people envision the conservation sector, they imagine like, walking down a beach and counting baby turtle hatchlings, or observing mountain gorillas, or saving macaws in the Amazon. And those are all close to my heart and super important. But the sector is so much bigger than that. Normally we just imagine a fraction of what actually goes on in conservation. So if we know that finding your niche is important, how do we go about doing that? Because, for instance, we've listed about 50,000 conservation jobs on Conservation Careers, probably more by now. And those covered like 15,000 different job titles. So it's super diverse. And we need a process to figure out what your niche is, where you might fit really well. And we do that by defining jobs in terms of two things: the cause and the role. So the cause is kind of like your why. It's what is the issue or the issues that you really want to tackle in your career? What's really important to you? What gets you fired up? And the role is more like the what. What do you do? What do you do to help? What are the tasks or the skills that you're using? The cause often links to knowledge, and the role often links to skills. So we'll talk about both of those. And an important thing to know is that for some people, one or the other is more important, and there's no right or wrong way there. For some people, the cause is what propels them, and it doesn't matter what role they do as long as they're working towards that. For other people, the role, what they're doing day to day, is really important, and maybe they want to do that for different causes. Maybe both are important to you. Thanks, Nick. So cause, again, is kind of like your why. What drives you? And usually linked to specific knowledge that you have. So if you feel like, career switchers might relate to this, if you've ever felt unfulfilled or like something just isn't right in your career, sometimes it can be because you're working towards something that just isn't in alignment with your why or your values or what you want to do in the world. So for example, maybe you're working for a company that manufactures plastics and you're working in marketing, and you're great at your job and you love the marketing aspect, but you're not fulfilled. You're just not loving it. But if actually you took your skill set in marketing and you went over and you worked for an organization that was tackling plastic pollution, that might be what you need to have a fulfilling, happy career. So that's the cause. We often think of it like a theme of work. Here are some examples. Go ahead, Nick.
I accidentally changed slides. I'm just apologizing. Carry on.
That's okay. Yeah, these are just some quick examples of causes, and they're probably infinite. There's many, but you might be really interested in animal welfare, whether that's animals in the wild or animals in zoos and aquariums. You might be really passionate about climate change. and combating climate change. You might love community conservation, how to empower, work with, support communities to manage their own resources and conserve their resources. It might be ecotourism, how to combine travel and conservation and support communities. Some really popular ones are marine conservation, restoration and rewilding, gaining popularity more and more, and sustainability. How do we live sustainably on this planet, and how do we help future generations do the same? Those are just a few examples. So if you don't know your cause already, let's take a quick moment, and have a think about what it might be. So I'm going to ask just a few different questions here. And as I read through them, just jot down your answers really quickly for yourself. So the first question is, what campaigns or petitions have you supported? Is there anything that you've supported in the past or currently supporting? What conservation charities or NGOs do you love? What organizations out there do you just really love and admire their work? What causes have you supported as a volunteer? If you've ever volunteered, who have you volunteered for? What have you volunteered for? Are there any causes you've made a donation to or would make a donation to? And I love this one. What issues make your blood boil? Like, what gets you fired up and almost, frustrated and angry and ready to act? What issues make your blood boil? So just take a moment to jot down your answers for yourself. We'll come back to it in a second. And we'll also share some resources in a little bit that can help you identify your cause a bit further. And I think over to you, Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Christy. I've been jotting down mine as well at this end. About migratory bird declines, RSPBs, a charity that I love and support, and wildlife trusts, like local wildlife trusts. Yeah, so we'll hear more from what you guys on the call care about in terms of your causes too. But let's move on to the other side. Okay, so we talked about causes. Let's talk about roles. Okay, so once you have a clear target, it's ready to start thinking about the roles. Now, roles are what you're going to do to help the cause you care about. Okay, the skills you're going to deploy. So if, like me, I care about migratory bird declines, or barn owls is another big passion of mine back in the day. Okay, that's the theme, that's the topic, that's the cause that I care about. But what am I going to do about it? Am I going to be a communicator? I'm going to tell the world about why barn owls or migratory birds, are important. Am I going to educate people about it? I'm going to raise money for it. There's lots of different ways in which you can help that cause. And these are often things like the job titles, if you want to think about it that way as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through, I think there's 11 different roles you can see in front of you. I'm going to go quick, okay? I want you just to listen and just capture the ones that stand out for you and just make you feel excited. So just think about, how you feel when you hear about how I describe these things, and capture the ones that really stand out and make you excited. So here we go. Okay, hold on. So first one, conservation communicator. For that, you might be writing press releases, news stories, blog posts, newsletters, and more. You might be managing social media accounts and websites. You might be running campaigns. Okay, next up, okay. Economist, you're often working at the intersection of conservation, business, and government. Economists are good with numbers, involves building a compelling business case for investment in conservation programs. It involves developing new economic tools to support conservation efforts. Next one, ecologist. Okay, ecological consultants in this area do surveys to provide advice to clients wishing to undertake developments. It often involves being outside a lot, undertaking surveys for protected species or habitats. It involves writing reports, analyzing data, drafting quotes for new work, and advising existing clients. Okay, rattling on, educator. Okay, environmental education can be teaching anyone from toddlers, children, up to adults about the natural world. Okay, it involves leading environmental education sessions, either on site or in the field or in the classroom or even off site virtually, like we're doing right now. Okay, delivering community events often is part of this as well to promote conservation work and developing educational materials. Next up, fundraiser. Okay, often termed development. Fundraising can involve many different things, including writing grant applications and reporting back to donors. It might be supporting memberships and donor campaigns, organizing appeals, fundraising drives, things like that. Okay, Moving on, conservation land manager, okay, working on the front lines of conservation, carrying out practical activities, often getting your hands dirty, involves habitat management. It might involve managing a wetland or a grassland or a woodland, something like that. It often involves visitor access as well, and working with volunteer groups to get work done. Okay, it'd be quite public facing. Next up, organizational manager. Behind most conservation activities sits an organization that provides the resources and the systems to support conservation efforts. Okay. So many organizations need administrative, business, human resources, operational, financial, leadership, information technology support. Okay. This might be a place where you feel you can add your value, okay, and thrive. Moving on, policy advocate. Okay, a small tweak to some legislation can make an enormous difference, a global difference even for wildlife conservation efforts. And this might be where your passion lies. Does it involve building sound policies or lobbying for them to be implemented and enforced? Okay, you need to be good at drafting position papers, policy briefings, and reports. Okay, into the home straight. Last three. Okay, conservation project manager. Project managers manage a specific project or a set of projects that requires strong organizational skills and ability to work in teams, manage and coordinate tasks, deadlines, budgets. It's a big area of work. We've listed 11,000 jobs and counting, and often requires a mix of project management skills and some specific skills for the particular cause in question. Okay. Penultimate one, conservation scientist. Okay, so science underpins and informs conservation interventions across the globe. It's often undertaken within a university or an academic setting, but not exclusively. And it involves collecting and analyzing data, reviewing scientific literature, communicating results in papers, reports, presentations. Science often also needs, quite a clear career path. Okay, so it goes from like a degree to a master's to a PhD and so forth. Okay. And the final, but last but not least, is wildlife carer. Okay. So while we often aim to keep wildlife wild, sometimes effective conservation requires hands-on intervention. So wildlife carers are the people who take care of the health and welfare of wildlife in captivity and in the wild. So we're talking vets, vet nurses, zookeepers, and more. Okay. Hopefully, some of them, maybe a few of them, got you excited and you wrote them down. Okay. Back to you, Christy.
Thanks, Nick. And yeah, many of you might have a sense of what's available in the sector already, but if you didn't, hopefully that gives you an overview that it's vast. There are so many opportunities out there, so many different opportunities, even just in roles. So hopefully you're starting to get a bit of a picture of what might be your top role or roles and cause or causes. And the neat thing about this is that you can combine them in many different ways.
Yeah.
So, and that's sort of what starts to build your niche, your conservation job, and your path into the sector. So for example, and these are just a few examples, you might be a fisheries scientist. So you might be a biologist, a scientist who studies how humans and fish interact, and how we can conserve and use fish populations. You might be a climate change policy advocate. So someone who advocates for action to address climate change. You might be and we're going to come back to this one later in the webinar, you might be a rewilding project manager. So someone who develops and or implements rewilding projects. So you can start to see that you can build your niche when you combine role and cause. And the possibilities here are really quite endless. So we'd love it if you took a moment and shared yours in the chat. Whatever you've come up with just now, it doesn't have to be your final answer. Feel free to pop it in the chat. If you combined your cause and your role, what would that be? What's your dream job?
Mm.
And while you're doing that, just a few things to keep in mind. It's okay to specialize in either the cause or the role, but not necessarily both. Like we said before, you might be really passionate about a cause like rewilding, and you're happy doing whatever job related to that. Or maybe what you absolutely love is writing, or you absolutely love like just being active out in the field, managing sites. And you're happy doing that across different causes. So you don't necessarily have to combine and have them both be equally important. It's really personal. The other thing is just, if you choose one, you're not locked into it for the rest of your life, for the rest of your career. You can change. It's not set in stone. So feel free to pick something, explore it. And as you change, develop and grow, you can always shift. And I think, yeah, another thing we find is that we've defined 11 rules in the sector. I'm getting distracted because I'm seeing everyone's dream jobs pop into the chat here. Often there's overlap between roles. So for example, a project manager tends to also be involved in fundraising and communications. Whereas a communicator might actually have overlap with science because they're talking to scientists and communicating their research. So you're not necessarily just limited to one role. There's a lot of overlap. And I'll share a few resources here in the chat in a sec that can help you if you want to explore further and kind of dig in a little bit deeper into what your niche might be. But it looks like many of you have a pretty good idea already.
That's great. And I actually dropped the resources in as well, just above it. So thanks, Christy. Yeah. Oh, let's read some of these. Marine conservation educator. Love it. Wildlife conservation communicator, Sienna. Yeah, that almost feels like one where you're just interested in communications, and wildlife conservation being such a broad area, you want to specialize in the role rather than a particular cause. Ecosystem restoration ecologist, amazing. Bird conservation project manager, yes, I know that very well. Very close to my heart, Cyril. Yeah, love it. Climate change communicator, rewilding ecologist, brilliant. Coral reef conservation scientist, wildlife carer, behaviorist. Marine conservation or sea manager. How good's that? I really like it. Yeah, marine carnivore conservation. So that's marine carnivore being the cause. Okay, so there's no particular role appended to that either. And maybe that's what you want. That's right. Rewilding organization manager. Some great ideas there kind of bubbling away. I'd enjoy playing with them. Obviously, if you've got 3 roles and 3 causes, that gives you 9 combinations to play with. Okay, and you can kind of keep going with it and see what fits well, okay, as you start to shortlist and explore. Right, so let's move on then. Thanks for that. That was really, really enlightening. Let's talk about step 2. Okay, step 2 is once you've got your target job, in this step, what we're going to do is use a simple process to remove the guesswork and identify any gaps to becoming employable for your specific target job, okay? Using this process, we're looking to try and save you tons of time and money. So let's just walk through it. What we're going to do and what we encourage you to do, okay, and you'll be able to watch this back as well if you want to kind of watch back and sort of see this in action again, okay, is go off and find, once you've kind of found an area you're really, really interested in. So James, you've got rewilding organizational manager. Go off and find 5 or 6 job descriptions from our job board or another job board, wherever it might be, okay, that match your target role, okay? So think about the level you want to work at, whether that's entry or mid-level, then go off and find, some rewilding organizational manager roles. Okay, and we've got some examples here on screen, and these are actually examples of rewilding project managers, actually, so quite close to, James, what you're kind of talking about there. And what you'll probably see, and what you already know, I'm sure, having kind of crashed around websites like ours, is, employers, when they're looking and listing vacancies, they share things like this, okay? So they talk about essential and desirable criteria. Now, they all mention it in different ways, but often it's like a list of requirements. There are the duties, the things you're going to do in the job day to day, and there's the requirements, the criteria that they're looking for you to meet, okay, when you apply. Okay, so as you'll see here for this particular example for Sussex Wildlife Trust, you'll see they're looking for someone who has a minimum of 3 years experience working in a similar role. They want someone who has experience of managing contractors, that's essential. They want someone with a proven track record of dealing with complex permissions and financial reportings. Under knowledge, you'll see they want a sound understanding of project management formalities and processes, and so on, okay? By looking at 5 or 6 different examples, you can start to collate and bring them together and look for patterns, okay? And then judge yourself against them to see how well you fit and where your gaps might be and how you might want to fill them. Now, an easy way of doing that actually is something which we call an evidence matrix and gap analysis. So let's just jump to that. If I can kind of swap across. Christy, can you still see that?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay. So once you've found your 5 or 6 examples, okay, and you've identified the essential and desirable criteria in them, Dead simple, make a spreadsheet, okay? And this spreadsheet is going to start, as you can see here. So down the side in the first column, we've got things like education, skills, experience, knowledge, behaviors, and miscellaneous, everything else, okay? And we've captured in here all the things we've seen in 5 or 6 different job descriptions for a specific target role, okay? We've organized them by the type, okay? And then we sort of said whether they're essential. In this case, we called it primary or secondary, which is desirable, I guess, those two things. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. We've organized them, organizational skills is a skill and it was a primary skill, it was essential, okay? Whereas we saw another skill, analytical, which was like a secondary or desirable. Bring it together. What you end up with is something that looks a bit scary, let's face it. It's quite a long list of requirements, okay? So there are 52 requirements we found when we looked at this. And Christy, this is like for a mid-level rewilding project manager role, isn't it? Just we kind of pulled it out from those examples. So you make a big
Yeah.
long list, okay? Now from this list, you can quite easily combine and collate and refine it down. For instance, I'm sure if I search for communications, it's not letting me do that. There'll probably be it's not letting me do that. There are 2 or 3 different examples. So there's communication skills was mentioned here. I can see there also that communicating with diverse audiences. I can see another one down here, working and communicating with diverse partners. We can refine that into a single statement if we wish and make it a bit simpler. But let's move on. First step, just bring it all together and organize it a bit, okay? Second step is with the list as it was, okay, alongside that list, just think about all your experiences that you've had to date that might provide evidence and examples of how you can match and fit each one of those criteria. Okay. So in this example, this person has 3 evidences or 3 different instances in their career. So one was a volunteer experience that they did for UNICEF expedition in Africa. They also did some education. They did a BA for the Open University. They also had a job. They were a trade manager at Chevron UK. Okay, and so on. If you've had multiple jobs or multiple volunteer or multiple education instances in your life, just have a different column for each one and build it out. You can probably see what the next step would be. Then just across each one of the levels, like each criteria, so the first one being a primary education, they're looking for someone with a degree in conservation, environmental science or related field. Just ask yourself, do I have any evidence from my experiences today that suit that? In this case, this person has a BA in environmental sciences, so perfect. So yes, they do essentially. Go to the next one, go to the next one, okay? And just try and draw out and look at yourself like in the round, full picture of what you have that meets what they're looking for. What you will probably find is you have more than you think. Okay, and this starts to build a really clear picture, all the different Lego bricks which you can build applications from, so CVs and cover letters and things like that. And it also helps to kind of show where your gaps are quite clearly. So work through it. Okay, take a bit of time the first time you do this, but once you've done it once, it's done. Okay, and the next step is much, much quicker and much easier. And you're only really capturing enough information just to kind of jog your memory. Okay, that's all. You're not capturing everything. It's just enough for you to kind of building out things from a little bit later. So the next step then is to go through everything you said and just find like the best examples. Okay, we've made them red here. Okay, so in this one, there are 2 examples of organizational skills. One was organizing an expedition from London to Mali. Great. The other one was managed a full project cycle for trade delivery across supply, logistics, finance, and shipping groups. Okay, and this person felt that this was the best example, the strongest evidence that they have good organizational skills. Okay, go down them all, identify in red the best ones. Now, these are the ones you really want to highlight in your cover letters and your CVs, okay? And you're not doing the best of the rest in your applications too. And then having identified the red ones, ask yourself, does this show I've got really good, strong experience? Does it show I've got some experience, a little bit of what they're looking for, but maybe not everything? Or does it actually show I haven't got any yet? Okay, so just give yourself like a traffic light, as we call it. Okay, so experience, some or none. Okay, so this person's already done that, gone through all of them, marked themselves off. Okay, and at this point, we can really start to trim it down and make it much simpler. So if we filter by, say, let's just look at the primary, the most important things that employers are looking for. Now, bear in mind, you don't need everything to be putting in a really solid job application. The perfect person rarely exists on this planet, and there's compromise, from both sides of, the job seeker and the employer as well. So focusing on the primary is a really kind of solid step to be taking, making sure you've got really what they're looking for across all these job descriptions, the recurring important patterns for that specific role you're looking at. You can then actually say, well, let's remove the things I've got good experience. I've got that in the bag. I'm happy with that. What's left? Okay. And then suddenly you've got a much shorter list that you can focus in on. These are the gaps for you to be focusing in on for your specific role. So if you were this individual looking for a mid-level rewilding project managers, you need to be focusing on your communication skills because you didn't feel you had that much yet. Okay, you need to be focusing on your organization and meeting and events, your managing of grants and finance, provision of training, project management, and also knowledge around local or regional conservation issues, ecology threats, and so on. Okay, suddenly you've got a manageable list from which you can then start to build out an action plan, a training plan. Okay, which we'll talk about in the next section. Okay, so that's the first step. Find what they're looking for. Okay, organize it, reflect against your career to date, and then find your best examples and give yourself a traffic light, experience some or none to then refine things from. Right. Okay. Ooh, very nifty. Step over to 3, filling gaps, Christy. We're rolling.
Yeah, I just wanted to say too that, I mean, we're working through this really fast to give you an example, right? Um, uh, but we have some resources that if you want to get like a snapshot of what a project manager at an entry level generally needs to have, we've got that mapped out for you too. We shared a resource earlier, the 11 key conservation roles. So that can give you a really good overview before sort of going in and finding those sample jobs yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you know what the gap, you've done your gap analysis, you know what your gaps are. Hopefully there's actually fewer, surprisingly fewer than you imagined. And this step, the third step, is all about creating an action plan to fill them. And if you take nothing else away from this step, the idea is to be strategic. You can spend a lot of time and money filling gaps if you want to, and often you don't have to. So we're going to try and prioritize things a little bit here. Thanks, Nick. Yeah, so basically we've looked at education, skills, experience, knowledge, behaviors. I'm not going to go through these to describe them in detail because I think they're pretty self-explanatory what they are. One to mention is just behaviors, because this one I think trips people up a bit when they're applying for jobs. So behaviors, you can think of like how you go about doing things. So it's not what you're doing or why you're doing it, or what knowledge you have or anything like that. It's more how you go about, say, interacting with other people. Do you have things like initiative? Do you collaborate well with other people? It's that kind of stuff. And we wanted to mention it here because when people apply for jobs, often they don't evidence this, which is interesting because it's often something that everyone has. Most people know how to take initiative, how to work in a team, how to collaborate with other people. But actually, it's important to evidence it too. So something to keep in mind. All right. So on the theme of simplifying things, when you're thinking about your action plan and you're looking across these areas, education, skills, experience, knowledge, behaviors, and MISC, we've kind of pulled together, this is not a comprehensive list, but like a really good list of resources and places you can look to start filling gaps. So the first things on the list are things that we have on conservation careers already. So we've got our conservation careers training courses. These are online courses that you can take. They're self-paced. They're really super flexible. And so that can help you fill gaps in education, obviously, in skills and in knowledge. We also have a wider training board where you can find everything from, short courses that take a day or less through to master's degrees. So you can search for other ways to fill education gaps, skills gaps, knowledge gaps there. We've got an experiences board. So we often find that experience is essential for getting into the conservation sector. So experience might be a job. It might also just be volunteering or interning. And that can, when you get experience, often it gives you also skills and knowledge and proof of behaviors, like evidence of behaviors at the same time. So you can go on our experience board, you can search for different volunteering and internship opportunities. Something to keep in mind with experiences is that there's different levels. There's ones that are advertised, there's ones that are kind of quietly advertised, and you can go create your own experience and customize it to you. And we've got some resources that actually guide you through how to do that. So we'll share those as well. We've got webinars that, like the one we're doing today.
We've got a whole webinar about how to create your own experience, haven't we? So
yeah, we do. So there's some really great like condensed info in those. Got a bunch of ultimate guides, podcasts, and then there's a ton of resources outside of CC as well. So things like MOOCs, massive, I think it's massive open online courses. So there's lots of platforms out there where you can go and get training for free or at very low cost. The one I remember off the top of my head is Coursera, but there's many. Obviously books, other podcasts, YouTube can be great for things like skills and knowledge these days. So there's a ton of resources on CC and off CC that you can use.
Right. I need to do some fancy footwork. Hang on. There we go. So bringing it back.
So many things. Yeah. So the idea is you can explore those different resources, and you can sort of identify specific things, maybe a specific course, a specific experience, a specific book, etc., that can help you fill gaps. So here, in the example of this person that we used, who's looking for a rewilding project manager role, and they've identified these missing skills, experience, knowledge. Yeah. The idea is in this table, those are just listed across the top. So across the top, you can see the gaps that need filling. And then down the side are the ways you can go about filling those. What's neat about this is that if you look carefully, one of the examples here is, so we've got some training, we've got some online courses, we've got a podcast episode, we've got like a MOOC, one of these free courses on ecology, etc. But if you look at the one example of doing some remote volunteering, just part-time as a fundraising assistant, actually it turns out that fills a skill gap, another skill gap. So it fills, managing grants and finance. It fills the gap of organizing meetings and events. And depending how you set it up, it might also fill a skill gap of providing training. Because if you provided training to anyone in that organization as part of that volunteer experience, you tick all three of those things. So the idea here is to see that you can prioritize how you fill your gaps. And actually just doing one thing might get you really far and really close towards being competitive. Anything you want to add there, Nick?
No, I'm just reflecting also, you could almost imagine a role that fills them all. Create one, and this is where you create an experience, you really can, make sure it's really strategic and targeted. You're getting the comm skills that you need. You're getting the managing grants and organizing meetings, events. You're providing training, project management. You're learning about local and regional conservation stuff. The gold standard would be, can you just do one experience that gives you all that? But certainly you don't need to do like 10 different things for 10 gaps. You can be quite strategic and focus and know why you're doing something. And I think if we're just talking about experience too, it's very easy to get kind of sidetracked by all the different shiny experiences and exciting things you could be doing. And this gives you a shopping list. You're looking for things that give you really solid experience of these things. Communication skills. Is this thing give me really solid communication skills? Are there sorts of skills that the employers are looking for? Is it written or verbal? You can go a bit deeper on this, obviously. So yeah, I would encourage you to be like laser focused, and prioritized about the things that you really need for your chosen role, and find the best, quickest, easiest, cheapest ways of getting quality evidence and experience and examples of them. Yeah. So it really kind of streamlines it, makes it simple, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, yeah. into the home straight then. So we've got about 5 minutes, okay, and then we're going to turn over to you guys for questions. And we just want to kind of just finish up then. We're talking about like stepping stones. If you're a career switcher, okay, you're looking to kind of switch in, this is quite an interesting area for you because it helps you to kind of get moving more quickly. And stepping stone jobs are ones which could be used, to kind of help to move you towards the career, maybe not making the full transition in one go, but the kind of transitional steps that help you to get there. Okay. So what are stepping stone jobs, or what are good examples of them? Well, stepping stone jobs, they're kind of four types, I guess we might talk through. For one is like a job which focuses on just one aspect of your target role. And we talked about this already a little bit, like you don't necessarily need to be a Barnell scientist, as I was sort of back in the day. It might be that you're just really interested in Barnells and you don't mind being a Barnell communicator, an educator, a project manager, or whatever it might be, so long as you're working on that course. And that's the first step, working on Barnells first, and then studying science and research alongside to bring it together later might be a good transitional step, for instance. So focus on kind of one aspect of a target role, or even just one particular area. So just fundraising, to be a project manager, but fundraising was important. I'll just focus on that first and expand out from that place. The next one is to focusing on like a key gap that you've identified within your target role. So again, coming back to kind of fundraising, if you want to be a project manager, but you haven't got any fundraising experience, go off and be a fundraiser for a while. You know that's going to help you to be much more employable, and you're going to be really transferable into things like project management and lots of other jobs beyond. Okay. The third type, sorry, would be a job that provides really kind of solid transferable skills and training. So an example from me actually back in the day was I did ecological consultancy after university. Okay, and it wasn't quite my bag at the time, but it gave me loads of good transferable experience. It taught me project management and budgeting and staff management and some survey techniques, lots of transferable skills that helped me to kind of move from that into other areas. It's a good kind of springing board, if you like, to kind of get me moving forwards. And the final one, a good stepping stone role, an example of would be one that where you transfer your current role into conservation. And it's something that often people don't think, but it's very much possible to do so. So you talked earlier, Chris, about someone who's working like plastic creation, plastic production, and marketing, or maybe you work, for Coca-Cola in marketing or something like that. It could be that your marketing skills are really valued within the sector, and just transferring those skills into the sector and applying them and working for a marine conservation organization as a marketing manager or something like that, could be all you need to find that sweet spot. And from there, you could move and explore towards an even kind of tighter niche, an area that excites you even more. But you might find a lot of your current job and your current skills, can be beneficial and is found within conservation too, because it's a big, diverse, and exciting sector to be kind of working in. Final point to make then as we wrap up, stepping stones, a quick and simple question to ask yourself, a quick approach would be to ask yourself this, what job could I move into fairly quickly, which will help me to get closer to my target role? So you think what your target role might be, what is the transition from where you are to where you want to be? Giving you kind of four different ideas and routes or paths you might wish to follow, but just answering that question can actually really be a bit of a penny drop moment for you in understanding what that might be. Right. Woo, we covered a lot. So what did we cover? Well, let's do a really quick recap, then it's over to you guys. And as I recap, feel free to jump to Q&A, okay, and use that kind of Q&A button to ask some very short questions, keep it like one sentence max, because in a second we're kind of coming to you guys and we'll be kind of going for the most voted questions down, okay? So what have we covered? We've covered, the importance of having a target job, why most people fail because they don't have that target, their sprint up's too thin, and why having a target job can really help you. And you explored a bit around causes and roles and start to bring some job titles together and start to kind of feel whether they make you excited or not. Second one was, identifying the gap. So having got that target role, understanding the process of really seeing what employees are looking for, reflecting against your experience today, what evidence do you have? Okay, then prioritizing, focusing on the essentials, the primaries, and then the kind of the areas where you have some or none. Okay, to really focus in on a shopping list of gaps that you're going to fill. Then it's about how are you going to fill those gaps? Lots of different ways of filling gaps. You don't necessarily have to spend lots of time or lots of money. You can be really strategic in how you do that. Okay, and really plan to kind of fill them quite rapidly and get good evidence and experience of them before you put in those great applications. Okay, and then we just touched on there at the end this idea of stepping stones, transferable steps or intermittent steps, the things in the middle, okay, which you can kind of work towards and step to get you closer to where you want to be. Whew, we've covered a lot and we are bang on time. We've left 10 minutes perfectly. We're getting really good at this, Christy.
We always have a battle of all the things we want to share and how much time we've got to share it in.
It is a real balancing act, but yeah, as you'll see, we're trying to deliver as much value but leave space for you as well. So yeah, great. Well, I can see there's 2 questions already, so we've got a place to start from. So thank you. Any more questions you might have, things you're not sure about, you want to go a bit deeper on, we're here for you for the next sort of 10 minutes or so. So I'm going to start with Marika Roma. Welcome. What would you suggest to someone who has spread themselves too thin at the beginning of their career? So what would you suggest? So I'm going to paraphrase, you're an early career, perhaps conservationist, you feel you've generalized and spread yourself quite thin. Well, if you're already in your career, that's probably a good thing. So I do think like the first job is the hardest one to secure. So if you've already got a job, had some employment, maybe you picked up some contracts or something like that, that's great. That's solid evidence, okay, and examples you can be then working out from. So actually, I think it puts you in quite a strong position. Actually, you've probably got multiple things which you can then kind of talk to employers about in different ways. So I don't see that as initially a problem. One thing that we do say, I think, as you actually comes out quite strongly, even in what we talked about here this evening. It's really good to have that specialism, that refined target that to be working towards. But Christy mentioned it a couple of times really nicely. One is don't be too blinkered, because as opportunities come along, be open to them, because it might be a good opportunity. It might be time to pivot and go in a slightly different direction, have a slightly different journey. That's great. Most careers do squiggle and they do meander. Certainly on reflection, I think Christy and myself, we've had quite squiggly careers, and it's probably how it will continue. But there's also, beyond having that focus, one is also recognizing there are some skills which are really kind of evident across lots of different job types, particularly fundraising, communications, project management. We do bang on about it a lot at this end at Conservation Careers. But if you can kind of have a focus and develop those kind of core key pillars of employability within the kind of conservation sector, then that's really going to help you. So some kind of generalist skills, okay, but then having that kind of having that kind of specialism as well around a particular area of work or knowledge or whatever that might be. So great question. Christy, I don't know if you've got anything to add to that.
Only that, like a reflection question maybe would be, what has you spreading yourself too thin?
Ooh.
And like what would help you or support you clarify what direction to go in? That's what I'd be asking myself.
Christy switches into coach mode. I love it.
Sorry, that was a bit coachy.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, great. Okay. Maya, I'm going to click answer live. Great. Is there a resource on CV that helps us create a strong resume? Go, Christy.
Yes, many. We have lots. Yeah, so we have, depending how much support you would like, you can do anything from read through one of our guides. Oh, we can share these resources in a sec, but we have a downloadable guide. It's free. Guides you through how to write like a really strong standout application. We have a course. If you're a member of our community, you've got access to that course for free, just as a member. So it's there in our community, that guides you right through the process of how to write a really strong application. We have some other resources too, like sort of templates for cover letters, templates you can adapt for a CV or a resume. We've got examples of jobs people have applied for, examples of applications where people have been successful, like they've landed an interview or landed a job. And then we do like one-on-one coaching and feedback, so we can review your application if you want one-on-one feedback. So yeah, there's lots.
I've got loads. Yeah, absolutely. So the free resource is brilliant. It's a detailed guide, how to build step by step, great examples in that. If you want to go deeper, if you want to be a membership is about £8 a month. So it's about a sort of Netflix type level. And for that, you get a detailed training, like Christy said, plus examples of a library and peer support as well and more. So yeah, thank you for asking. I'm going to move to the next one then. Marlene, I can see. Should I be, hang on, I just want to make sure most upvotes. Yes, okay, I've got it the right way around. Okay, so Marlene, yeah, thank you. What do you recommend to go from my certification as a dive master into marine conservation or via my experience as a project manager? So you want to work in marine conservation, you've got a certificate as a dive master, you also have experience as a project manager. Yeah. Yeah. So marine conservation being the cause, we've talked about that today. So you obviously really care passionate about that. You're a dive master. My wife's a dive master and she's a marine conservationist too. So I understand, where you're coming from, and you've got project management experience, which is also really good, as we just mentioned. It's a really transferable skill set. Um, I guess I would explore more the target role in the first instance. Is it that you want to just work on marine conservation, but you don't really mind or care what? It's a really big area. Marine conservation basically covers everything that marine that conservation has. So you could be any one of the various kind of roles that we talked about. So I would maybe encourage you to think a bit more about the role you want to play. And then from there, I would go through the process that we just showed to be strategic about what's important in terms of what you already have and what employers are looking for. Yeah, so do you want to be a marine scientist? Do you want to be a marine fundraiser? Do you want to be a marine project manager? If you've already got those skills available, then that could be your easy switch or your easy route in. Yeah, but so I would just play around a bit more and clarify what your role might be within conservation, and then work from there. Do that evidence matrix, find the action plan as a result of that. Yeah.
We had another hour, we could go through the example.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
analysis, the evidence, yeah,
Yeah.
for this. Be a great thing to use.
Yeah, and see, just dropped in about, oh yeah, application support. Thank you. Yeah, so we do have a whole guide about how, two or three guides about how to work in marine conservation. So jump onto our site and have a look at that, because it does list examples of what marine conservationists do, the different job types, and also the different requirements that people are looking for as well. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Alexandra, how do you squeeze all your relevant experience into a one-page cover letter or resume? I know it's tough, isn't it? Yeah. Christy,
I can feel you looking at me, Nick.
I happily I can happily answer that one, but I know you're, even better at this than I am.
Yeah, I would say, like, to simplify it, I would say two things. First thing would be get really clear on what your most relevant, most impressive information evidence is. Know what that is. So if you go through the guide we just shared in the chat, that'll help you do that.
And you could go
And
through the evidence matrix we just showed you as well. So listing the examples, listing your experiences, and those red things really that we said. Yeah.
yeah, go through that process, know what the top things that you have to get across to this employer are. And the other thing I'd say is it's kind of the same thing, put a different way, like think like the employer. Because if you think like you just want to share everything about your career so far. You have all this information, you know everything you've done, and you want to get it all in there. To the employer, they just want to know if you can do the job. So they're really just looking for, is this person meeting the criteria that I need? Yeah. So going through that evidence matrix or the gap analysis process will help you do that.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, I'll just say you don't need to get all of it into your cover letter as well. It really, what you want to do in a cover letter is just highlight your most relevant, most impressive skills that align with what they're looking for. So that might be 3, 4, 5 things. Very short little success statements about, what it is you did and what you achieved. We can talk about more of that if you look at the examples we've got. And then really want like the best of the rest in your CV or your resume, the supporting document that sits alongside that. That wants to have pretty much everything in that's relevant and not a lot else. And the cover letter, just pick the really best 3, 4, 5 examples and sort of go to town on those a little bit more. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily have to be one page either. Keep it short, okay, but it's not a hard and fast rule, is what I'd say. Right, we've got time for just one more. I can see two quite long questions in there. I'm sorry, I'm not going to get around to them. They're also quite long, but I appreciate you asking those questions. But I can see a short one that's been upvoted from Sarah, so I think we'll wrap up on that one. Thank you, Sarah. How do I apply for an internship to gain experience and fill a gap? Is experience, if experience is already essential for the intern? Oh, I see. Right, so it's like the chicken and egg. How do you get an internship when the internship needs an internship? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, applying for an internship is like applying for anything. It's about selling yourself into the role and very much what we've just been talking about. Find those examples that you've got, and really be specific about how you meet them. Um, if you're not sure with anything, with a job or an internship, any application, if there's something that you're really not sure about, I would always reach out and ask the employer the question specifically. Try and even get them on the phone, the hiring manager, whoever that might be, the decision maker, have a conversation because that's likely to do. Well, it's two or three things it'll do. One is it'll answer any questions you've got. Two, it'll get you on their radar. So when Sarah Fielder Fedler, sorry, applies, then they might just remember your name and you might just kind of make the shortlist a little bit higher because you had a nice conversation with them. And three, you might also get some useful tidbits and information that's going to help your application to be of higher quality. So I would always ask, and then just put in the best application you can. So follow the guide that we have. Internships, there aren't many. We do list them on our website. So it's worth kind of having a look there. There are things like paid internships too. They're obviously very competitive, but worth looking at just in case. And I'd always encourage you to, having done the process we've been through today with the gap analysis, making the action plan, is I encourage you to think about what experience would deliver those criteria that they're looking for, the key gaps. Can you even craft or create an experience through things like networking, through standing back, jumping in LinkedIn, saying, who's doing this sort of work? Can I connect with them? Can I then help them in some way that helps them and also creates experiences and evidence for me that I can kind of build into my applications? That's the kind of one of the strongest ways of kind of getting the sort of experience that's going to make you more employable, as well as building your network and everything else, and sort of trying before you buy with a specific role. The last thing I guess we'll sort of wrap up on is, experiences are really valuable as well in terms of helping your employability. Education's great, okay, and if you're interested in doing degrees and masters, then that's brilliant, and that's going to help you if that's what you want to do. But at the same time, experience kind of education kind of shows that you know something, but experience shows you can do something. Okay, it shows you have experience and evidence of actually doing the various things, and that's really what employers are looking for. They want evidence that you can actually do it. So if you can kind of create experiences yourself or connect with experiences that are already out there to fill those specific gaps, that's a really kind of strong, quick way of kind of moving yourself forwards. Anything else to add, Christy, on that final point? You're welcome, Sarah. Thank you.
I think it's covered. Yeah. Yeah. We've covered a lot today. I was just responding here to Marlene, who was asking about job opportunities with us. I love that you asked that. I was just going to say we're a small team, so there's nothing right now, but we'll publish anything on our job board.
Yeah, we do offer opportunities for people who want to write, and interview conservationists and share their writings. If you're particularly interested in like communications, we've got a communications internship with Durrell Conservation in Jersey as well. I'll be advertising for that quite soon. That's an internship for 6 months where you get support from us and you're in-house in Durrell too, and it can be remote. So keep your eyes open. We do offer opportunities. We're not hiring at the moment, unfortunately, but thanks for asking. Christy, it's been loads of fun. Thank you for being my partner in crime. Great co-host. I must say, Christy put a lot of this together, a lot of the thinking that we developed, but you've created a wonderful training resource as always. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining and for being with us this evening. I hope you found this useful. We will be sharing the recording in due course. And keep your eye on the website. We'll be doing more training as well this year going forward. So thank you, everyone. It's been a lot of fun, Christy. Thank you.
Been great. Thanks everyone for being here and being super engaged too. I loved seeing your sort of niches come out. So we're excited for you to keep moving into those. Yeah. And hopefully this is you streamline that process a lot more, made it much simpler, much more fun.
Yeah.
Easier.
Yeah. C manager. I still remember that. I love it. Right. Okay. Good luck, everyone. Take care. We'll see you in the next training. We'll maybe see you in our community soon. All the best.